And TAs, um, just keep us posted in the chat, and TAs will try to help you out. Okay. So again, developers can customize, enhance others' code, no legal issues. The Linux kernel is the open source software, right? Um, and then we can go ahead with this nifty diagram where it shows view, where you can basically view a code and you can modify, and then you can copy or distribute. So a quick example of that is, um, let's say in GitHub, like Facebook React, it's basically an open source code. You can see how it works, and then you can basically see the code. You can change it whatever you want, and it's MIT license, which is the most permissive license in open source. Um, and then again, some licenses allow you to view code, maybe modify it, but not like really distribute it, or else you'll get fined or sued. So open source software doesn't really says that it's free. That's a common misconception. Open source software is not free right away. So what is free software? So free software, it's basically an open source development methodology, and free software is a social movement. And when open source software focuses on collaborative development, free software focuses on user right. Free as in freedom, not a lot, lack of cost. So other things for uh, free is, again, you can basically do all of these stuff without getting sued or whatever, or have like license fees, right? And this diagram would show you the intersection. So both of them can do view, modify, distribute, copy. When open source software focuses more on the development methodology to make the software more robust, make the code optimized. So free software is more about the social movement and the freedom of using it. And basically, the benefits of having a free open source software, or they call it FOSS, is basically you have more personal control. You have more freedom to do anything you want. In terms of privacy and security, they're saying most of the time it's more secured because a lot of people is looking in the code. A lot of people is maintaining the code all around the world. However, if let's say an open source software doesn't really have a lot of maintainers, now it goes to reverse that open source software might not be as secure as it people would think about. Um, a lot of people go with open source or free open source software. Why? Because it's free and no cost. Um, and however, some of the disadvantage of having a free and open source software is basically the hardware and software compatibility. Unlike with proprietary software, for example, Microsoft, you just use one technology with Microsoft and it integrates well with the other Microsoft products. But now with open source products, now you have to do most of the integrations with yourself, unless they build libraries around that open source product. Okay. Yes, bugs and missing features. That's one of the headaches for open source software is if you don't have a lot of maintainers, and especially usually open source software are built on top of other open source software. So those dependencies would be a big headache once you need to fix things. Let's say you have for example, this React app, just an example, and it would be very dependent on, let's see, this one, like dependencies. And if one of those dependencies aren't really maintained well, you're bound to get into problems with your open source product. Let's see, and then now let's talk about the GNU project, or GNU project. It's basically with this logo, founded by Richard Stallman, 1978 at MIT. He basically wanted to create this free operating system software, and like GCC and Emacs, it's mostly written by Stallman. Other programmers created more later. So this is a movement to, it basically stands for not Unix, right? Because it's based on the design of Unix, and Unix that time is a proprietary software. It's not free. And again, things are very expensive during that time. And then as for the Unix philosophy, its high level points is basically do one thing and do it well. Worse is better. Support interactivity, handle input-output streams. GNU software conforms to Unix philosophy. Okay. And it's simple, it's modular. And the Linux operating system family, it's basically a family of operating system based on the Linux kernel. Linux kernel is one of the central core of OS that manages all other components. Kernel is basically the one that talks to your hardware. Okay. Kernel was developed by Linus Torvald. So when we always say Linus Torvald, it's about he developed the Linux operating system, but it's more to be really specific on that. He developed the Linux kernel. Okay. FOSS, GNU, and Unix play an important role in Linux development. Linux kernel released under GPL v2. It's a license. Most distribution add GNU software on top of kernel. Yes. First complete OS family to qualify as FOSS. So it would look like this. So Linux kernel is the one that Linus Torvald really created. And then he added the GNU software to really build that Linux operating system. And with the Linux operating system, it's a very blanket term or generic term that includes a lot of different versions, or they call it Linux distributions. And just to quickly show you, I think I save an image here. Let's see. Let's see if we can zoom in. That's not a high quality one, but I can just Google that, I guess. Linux distribution tracker, I think. DistroWatch. Let's see. Picture. No, it goes back to the same. Let's hit with this one. List. Here we go. Hope we can zoom in on this one. So as you can see right now, there's a lot of branching with this one. Are we able to zoom? No. I'll just try to find the correct link to show that in a high resolution picture, I guess. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Cool beans. So it will all start from, not that one, it's a different one. So, okay, scroll down all the way to the bottom. So it starts with some of the bigger distributions, the Debian, Slackware, Red Hat, which is the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And then you can see Android here as well, I think down there. Where was it? I saw it a while ago. Android, see? So Android is based on Linux as well. In terms of what we're gonna use and talk more about, Debian is basically Unix based. Thanks, Juan, for sharing that image. So in the Debian base, we'll see another fork here, Ubuntu. This is one of the recommended Linux machine for the CompTIA Linux Plus. And as you can see, Ubuntu became super popular, and now it branches off with a lot of different distributions as well. right? For me, I have only experienced Ubuntu, and as you can see towards the end of the timeline, if it cuts off, it basically means that it's no longer being maintained or supported a lot, I guess. It's kind of like dead. Uh, the other environment that I sent you guys to set up is basically Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So from Red Hat, let's see, Red Hat Enterprise. This is the paid version with support. This is CentOS. This is what we're using. And there's another one, Fedora, uh, somewhere out there. Fedora. There you go, Fedora. So as you can see, there's this is one of the problems as well with open source is people can just modify. So it's one of the reasons why it didn't really penetrate a lot of in the consumer market. It's because there's a lot of things to choose from, right? Uh, and then people can just keep building their own distribution, forking out of those. And one of the trivias for Linux itself is it's something that all people has access, but not everyone has access. It just means that everyone has access to see the source code, but at the same time, they can't just easily touch the source code because again, there are code maintainers with that one. Right. Um, do we have to memorize them? No. So here's the good part with the first lesson. The theory doesn't really appear like in the test so much, but it's good to just understand the whole concept of it. But once we start with some of the commands and even just definitions of basically Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat Linux, and even Kali Linux, maybe they would use those short definitions as well in the exam. Okay, so going back, um, yes, yes, one, yep. FOSS Natures promotes transparency, which we mentioned already. Design emphasis, simplicity, modularity, reliable, stable, and that's why a lot of servers runs on Linux. Like I think they say like 90%, and then uh, every cloud server that you think of is basically Linux, and even the Amazon, uh, I think Amazon Images that I forgot which distro it's fork off. Yes, obviously, yeah. So Juan, do you remember where it forked off as well with the Amazon Linux? Red Hat? Yeah. So with Amazon, you can basically show you because if you weren't really able to create your, I mean, install your VirtualBox and basically install your CentOS, this is another good way to create your Linux environment. Um, for you guys, you might have more Amazon credits or uh, because you're Amazon employees. For me, because I'm just using free tier and the most lightweight ones is basically the Ubuntu server, which I also use, and Amazon Machine Image is also Linux based. Okay. Yes, get free account basically. Sharper learning curve. Desktop software is not well supported. The official version might confuse new users. No official support for the most part. That's why Windows really penetrated a lot, and now even Apple, just because of they really focus on the consumer side, which has a very good graphical user interface, very intuitive, and that really made them get big market share. Okay, Linux distribution, no official Linux OS as we showed you in the image. All distros based on Linux kernel, kernel plus additional software. Again, like here, kernel plus GNU software or whatever software becomes a Linux operating system. Also, differences in community, release rate. Choosing a distro is a matter of identifying your business needs. familiarity with provided tools. There are hundreds of distros. So these are just a few, like Slackware, Debian, Ubuntu, Kali Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Kali Linux, I have experience using a lot of virtual environment to do penetration testing. So why would you download it? Because it already gives you a lot of tools for security pen test right out of the box. And then CentOS is basically a way for Red Hat Enterprise Linux to, again, have the community try it out, test it out, get used to it, and they like it, and now they can basically go to Red Hat Enterprise Linux for the paid support. Then skipping ahead, Arch. If you're very ballsy, go with Arch Linux because it's always the ahead of the curve. At the same time, it's so hard to basically manage all your dependencies with that one. Uses for Linux: servers, workstations, mainframe supercomputers, mobile devices, Android, PCs. Yes, a lot of people also use. Very popular is the Ubuntu desktop version. So you kind of got like a bit similar to the Mac OS GUI, right? Embedded systems. So this is one of the slides. It's called activity section. We'll do a trial run for this one. Let's see how this would go. So in this activity, I'd like everyone to just hit up the chat and talk about maybe their experience with Linux and just 5 minutes. Let's just check how it goes. So let me go ahead and hover the chat. So again, the question is the Linux design philosophy. Yeah, no experience. Yes. Yeah. So what's if you're also like a Mac user, like your terminal is basically Unix based as well. So some of the commands you can also play around using your Mac OS terminal. And in my case, I can just basically add this one and just do my commands there. Right, so let's say cd to let's say cd and cat. Do I even have something? List, something like that. Cool. So looks like I'll start reading some of the chat. Link on chips runs on Linux. So troubleshoot, no experience. Totally fine. Linux essentials. So how is the bootcamp on the Linux essentials? And I've used Linux distro. I own Ubuntu Matebox and use Kali, Ubuntu CentOS. Okay, you can download Ubuntu from Microsoft Store for your system. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So look that up. CD change directory, no experience. If you have Mac, open up the terminal, play around. Yes, basically it. And also, I like what Juan has mentioned. Basically, everything is just a file. So even the hardware components and the interfaces, all of them are represented in a file, like not really a file. It's like a virtual file. Okay, let me see. I just love it running like a few times. Yep. And again, the advice is try to live and breathe with your terminal if you're a Mac OS user or in your Linux environment. So even for me, I used a lot of, when I was studying, I keep using the Nano, the Vim for my text editor, and creating bash script to do lazy stuff. Like let's say if I hit W5, I just open up a Word document and that basically would open up my notes before. So just try to keep using it. Okay. And I do hope everyone has a Linux environment because I've been tracking that as well. Looks like most of you have it. If not, um, later on after the class, that would be the time to now reach out with the TAs to help you guys set up your environment. Okay, let's go back and see. Um, okay, what's this? You are a sysadmin
Hey, Clark.
activity section. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I got a quick question for you. I asked it earlier, but in terms of the test, um, is it going to be more based on CentOS or is it a combination between Red Hat and Debian? Because I know a lot of the core commands differ. For
Mm-hmm.
example, the apt command in Debian equates to yum in the Red Hat
Correct.
world. So, did they base the test on one or the other, or is it a combination of the both?
Yeah, it's basically a combination of both. However,
That's
most of the performance-based question, I think they steer away from um, making it only CentOS or only Ubuntu. So you're kind of safe of just knowing, oh, APT is for this one, Yum is for this one. That should be fine. And again, most of them looks kind of similar, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and then in my experience as well, I did have an Ubuntu before, and then I studied for it, and then forgot for a long time. And when I studied again, I just used CentOS all throughout, and that was sufficient. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that question. You are sysadmin, CDO. He wants to start a discussion about Linux fundamental concepts, advantage, disadvantage. So this was already mentioned above there, and we'll maybe just try to skip this activity. But again, one of the tips, because Jesse also mentioned that the previous cohort, they said what really helped is you guys really focus on the activity section of the CompTIA ebook guide, because you would get a lot of those scenario based, and if you keep trying to follow it and try to do it on your own in the command line interface, you'll definitely have a better chance. Yeah. And presenting the CLI. So text-based interface between the user and the OS that accepts input in the form of commands. Presents prompt to user. User enters commands to interact with system. Developers and admins use CLI, and end users tend to use GUI. Comfort at command line interface is essential and assume skill. A graphical user interface is not required and may not be installed. You can perform all administration at the CLI. So for newcomers, basically GUI helps you out because you just have to read a bit, click, and again, usually the software being built for that graphical user interface is very intuitive. That makes sense. But as you try to do it over and over again, and it's easier to just let's say configure in any configuration. Let's say configure your operating system or your scripts, automations in just let's say one line with options and parameters of a command instead of like I click this, okay, and then I click this option, and then I click this parameter, and then I hit submit. Oh, I need to hit review. So those those are a lot of steps, and sometimes it would need to refresh. So again, that is not very productive. So again, as you go on more to be a developer, you'll basically be living and breathing in the command line interface, right? So it's easier that way. Advantage and challenges: faster for system to process, faster for admins to enter info. Commands can be stored as script. Yes, that's one of the good things is you can basically have a command and store it, let's say for a variable first, and then use it, and then now use it to run a script. Script can be scheduled to run on a regular basis. Again, An example GUI for this is basically clicking your back up your Google Drive Dropbox, let's say daily at 11 p.m. And again, you can just create a script that allows you to do that as well, to do backups on your file. Additional options that may not be available in the graphical user interface. And again, because the limitation of a graphical user interface is basically your screen, right? Unlike in additional options, there's tons of them. And yeah, there's tons of it, and there's a lot of ways that you can do a lot of combination with your subcommands, options. And then challenges, more difficult to learn than GUI, but what I like about the terminal, it's like learning an instrument or any other sport. You just need to have to build that muscle memory, and then you'll be fine. Commands have many options that are not always consistent. Yes, even some of the commands sometimes they do similar things, and now you would question why you would choose one or the other. That's some of the common challenges, often mistakenly thought of as a legacy, which is not. Uh, Many command line environments in different OS platform, yes. So as I forgot who mentioned earlier, like for example, you're doing a software update for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you need to use the APT, and then for Debian, you have to use Yum, and then shells. So a shell is basically a system component that permits users to pass commands and information to the kernel. Okay, users issue command in shell to tell operating system what to do. OS responsive results can either be CLI or GUI. CLI shells are basically Bourne shell, Bash shell, C shell, Corn shell, which again you can configure, but usually the default is Bash shell. So again, the Linux terminal uses Bash shell, and this one as well. I have a CentOS OS 7 running as well. This is basically your shell. Let's see. To do running everything. Yes, correct. So one of the comments that I think was that one has said, oh, Jesse, yeah, to really learn the ins and outs of Linux. Yep. So shell prompt is basically the one blinking. I don't know if that, there you go, that's blinking. And then let's see. Basic syntax, ls-a, and then arguments with options. So the syntax most of the time is basically the command that you want to use, and the options. When you say options, a different way of basically having that command show something or execute. Arguments are basically parameters, or let's say files, documents, scripts that you want that command to execute on. So an example would this be, for example, the ls command. Let's put that maybe, I don't know, if you put it smaller is better. No, let's just make it bigger then. So for example, in this one, ls command basically lets you list all the things, but if you have like hundreds of files, it gets pretty hard to read it from left to right. So even just doing an ls-l option, long format, it kind of lists you like that. So right now we're doing some of the commands, and these are the important things now for the exam, learning how to use them. And again, in my experience, what really helped was I tried to enter the commands on my own, and that would really help you retain the knowledge. So ls-l is basically long format. It shows you a lot of things. It shows you the permissions. It shows you the owner, the group, the date it was created or modified. And then if you add -a instead, it would show you hidden files. And some of the commands, or maybe most of the commands, allows you to put two options together. So now if I hit ls-al, it means I want all, including hidden files and also the long format. It would show like this. And as you can see, a hidden file would be starting with a dot or period. Mac OS, you can definitely do that as well. And let me open up. So in Windows, I only know the GUI part and basically showing hidden files, but in Mac OS, you can do Command Shift dot. I don't know if you know. How about, let's say here. There you go. Hide that, show that, hide that, show that. But if I go to the same one with my terminal, let's say I go to the CDU code challenges. Wrong. Yep. And then I hit ls-al, and I do see the .git, which is a hidden file. If I don't do the -a included with it, I don't see it. Okay. And then an argument. Basically, an argument, I said a while ago, like a file, right? So if we go back here, the blue one denotes a directory, so maybe we can hit that within ls. So let's do clear. And ls, I think I have this directory 1, and it basically has nothing. So let me just add some stuff there. Text.txt, and when I hit that again, it does show. So this is command and argument, which is a directory. I can also put the option again there. And again, you can clear that again. ls. Let's say I want a ls file. It can also allow you to ls a file. You can also put the options afterwards, not all the time. Okay. Again, if whenever you see that in the guide, these square bracket, it means that they're basically optional, right? The command would at least still execute or work. And again, if you ever want to learn more about it, strongly suggest to always use the man page. At first, it might be overwhelming. There's a lot of things, but as you get used to it, it will really help you a lot. And for me as well, when I started reviewing, if I ever forget a command, I would start by searching for the command. I know this is maybe a bit later on, but it's very important, like the apropos. Apropos is basically a find this command or find a description of that command, and let's say apropos list, and it basically gives you all of the thing that has, and let's say you forgot the command to do that, you can basically see it there. And then that's the time I would now hit man pages, because I forgot to, let's say, list a long format, and then I can scroll down, maybe enter or page down. And let's see, goes down. There's a way to search this as well with slash -l, long this format. And the way to search it as well is put a slash and long, highlights everything, and you can scroll through them. Don't forget the man, okay? Okay, so just to check the var as well, because we're there. ls var log. Yep. Moving on. So it already showed you that one. Basic bash commands. So echo, for those who have programming languages already, echo is basically the print command for for Bash. Uh, it sounds like nothing for now, but if you start building your own scripts, it basically helps you add like a message to the user. For example, installing in the progress, it's building it up. And in my case, I think I have created a bash script that allows me to basically upload to an S3 bucket. And I added a basic echo command. So when I hit my shortcut, let's say upload S3, and what I basically did was this one. This is basically an echo only. And another echo that I did for my bash terminal is having these being printed out every time. Okay, so let's already know that. It's very helpful to check what's inside. Uh, PWD is basically working directory. So whenever you're losing, like you don't know which path you are in, you basically hit that. This is pretty helpful for those who are trying to configure their uh, system variables with Windows or Mac. I don't know the equivalent for Windows, but PWD at least shows you, oh, it's last user slash my name and then dev. Touch or CDs basically change to working directory. You can do the absolute and relative path, but I think that's later on. Touch allows you to either create a file. If the file is already created, it's basically giving that a timestamp, meaning it kind of acts like it was modified, even though there were no changes that were made inside. It would still put that new timestamp. CP is basically copying a file to another file, a file path, let's say another file to another file location, right? It's pretty helpful if you don't want to drag and drop things all the time. And a CP would be very helpful when you're, let's say, doing backups. Most of the time you encounter using CP. You would back it up to a different folder. Make directory. It basically lets you create a new directory. I have a use case with this as well, even though it's a very simple command. For me, when I back up my S3 bucket folder up there, so I back it up locally, I basically create a directory with a new timestamp. So that's mkdir with the date command, create that new timestamp, and now put the files from the online, or I mean the internet remote repository going down to my machine. Okay, so now it's 1:45, and as we all know, we like to take 15 minutes break. So let's do a 15-minute break and be back at 2 p.m. PST. And if you have questions, I'll hang around here. Can you open the man pages in separate terminal or?
Hi, Clark.
That's it. Yes, was that?
Yeah, this is Bo.
Okay, Bo.
Yeah,
What's up?
I do have a question. Are you going to go over maybe your expectations for um, everything we need to complete through the Blackboard site?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I
Okay,
was
because
planning to do that after the lecture because I was kind of feeling that you guys have already a lot of things to do, click submit whatever with WTIA, AWS, and CDU. I was like, let's just do lecture and do it at the end.
okay, all right, that sounds good then.
Yeah, thanks. All right, we're back online. Let's start now with file viewing commands with the cat command. Uh, it's basically means concatenate, and then now it also shows you the less command, and just quickly differentiate both of them. So if you do have just a cat command, everything just outputs to you, and you have to manually scroll it using my mouse button. Yeah, my mouse device. But most of the time, you might not have access to a scroll, so it's always also better to use the less command. It basically outputs it that fills your screen starting from the top, and basically you can go down or maybe page down to check most of it. So that's one of the use case for the less instead of using the concatenate. And then you have to hit Q to quit it. But most of the time, if you just have like a few lines, cat should work. Concatenate should work. Next, file editing commands. I don't know if I have nano in my CentOS. Vim or V, I definitely have that. So let's say I do ls a. So I do this or this one. I would have access to this text editor. But again, what the difference with this one is you cannot just add stuff right away because you're basically entering what they call a command mode, and with the command mode, your characters in your keyboard are basically command inputs. So you can use, let's say, letter L. If I hit letter L, it goes to the right. If I hit J, it goes downwards. So it's basically grabbing my input keys as commands instead of text. If I want to start adding text, I basically press I. And as you can see down here, it says insert. And now with the insert, I can basically add stuff. Hello. And this is basically the input mode. And if you want to exit that out, basically hit escape. And then now you need to hit your shift and then, the colon. And then when you hit Q, it just quits. When you want to save, you want to put W to write. And when I basically view that, you can see the hello now. And as Jesse mentioned, yes, whenever I say input and output, it's basically standard input or standard output. That's the technical term for it. And if you ever programmed with C++, you basically do the std out, so it's standard output as well as standard input. These are different flavors again of just a file editing. You can really explore this on your own, and it's not really hard to kind of take in the knowledge for those. Shut down, and then this is basically the options and parameters. Um, Basically allows you to shut down using the command line interface. There's nothing more to that. This is quite helpful if you have like a scheduled maintenance and you maybe want to shut it down. Yes, Nano is not the most user-friendly. Yeah, but yes, but again, any file editing command should be easy to understand. Super user commands. Super user has admin credentials, typically avoid logging in as root. Sometimes you'll need to assume super user privileges, su dash space dash or hyphen, switches or substitute user credential. So one thing you have to note about su doesn't really mean super user, it means substitute. And then if you supplied a parameter su space dash space whatever username, in this case root, it basically switches you to the root user. So an example of that one would be when I want to hit su dash, basically ask for my password, and the default is I go in as a root user, and I can also supply that as root. And I can also switch to other users as well. So I want to go back here, and I'm back with my username. Yeah. So yeah, even if you check in the internet community, there's been a long-standing dispute of what's a better text editor. So it's up to you if you want to choose the dark side or whatever. Shell history. Bash keeps a history of commands enter used to repeat a command. So I find this very helpful, the history. So there are times that you created a bunch of commands, parameters, whatever, piping, and then you just can't remember, and you just need to use it again. Just hit up history, and you can basically see all the commands that you used. For example, this one, I can never remember this one.
Cloud, can I cut you for a little bit? Is there any way you can fix the screen a little bit so the content is not covered in the panel, the control panel of Teams? Some of them are not able to see some of the contents.
Oh, really? So let me share again. Let's see if that helps. How about now? The control panel. That one, it's more of like in each of you guys have your own control panel. For me, I do have two screens so that my control panel is actually on the other screen. So it's actually your own control panel that's there. And we also get annoyed sometimes with this one. We don't really know how to move it, but I'll try my best to maybe put my shell up there. Yeah, I know it's frustrating. Yep. Yeah. So going back, the history. Another use case for me that I find it helpful is when I need to connect to my Ubuntu instance. Let's say it's as long as SSH-I, and then I need to find, let's say, the key, something like that. And then I need to do the Ubuntu at, and then the IP address that's like, it's like get that long. It's like, I can't remember that one. So history would help you do that for you. Up and up, yeps. Another thing is you can just hit up and down to cycle through the old commands as well. Okay. Tab completion. So a feature which command line shell fills in the name of a command you partially type. So this is what's really helpful with tab completion, aside from it fills up very, very long file names or directory, is you would basically know what exists or doesn't exist. So let's say I want to check if I have a, what project? A bash script project. So I could do cd ba and tab. So usually maybe 3 characters, and then when I hit tab, it auto completes. If I'm looking for something that I don't have, it won't basically complete. Let's say cd, let's say Golang. It doesn't complete because I don't have that. So it's an easy way to check if you have created it. And this would be a bit different if you have a lot of the same name. So an example with this one is, let's say I have a lot of my file. So if I now do something like even concatenate, let's say concatenate my file, it doesn't know what really. So because I do have 2 and I do have 3, something like that. It's empty, by the way. But if I do again, let's say the README, it's only 1, so it fills it up. Okay. Yes, tab completion to do the pad. So this is another way to avoid having errors in basically trying to change your directory or copying a file from somewhere. Shells, tips and tricks. Yes, keep using tabs. Clear the screen with clear command. Before, I don't really use the clear command a lot, but now I do realize that it really helps a lot to always have a fresh one before you execute a command, especially commands that gives a lot of big output, like a lot of lines. And we can quickly try to discuss shell commands. And let's go over to the chat for 5 minutes. And maybe you can guys even share like your favorite shell command for your maybe personal day-to-day personal stuff, or maybe for your work stuff that you do. Or if none, what do you think is the most helpful? Along with history, Control R. Yes, PWD is very helpful, especially when you first encounter this tilde symbol or tilde. It's basically your home directory, but the full name would show like this: /home/ your username. Same goes with this because it's also Unix based. So that tilde is basically a shorthand name for that /user/username. Help everything is how I learn. Yes, history and OS for sure. All right. I like the comment of knowing where you are is half the battle. Yeah, for sure. Accidentally deleting something. Oh, yeah. With the wrong directory, wrong folder. Uh, I think most of us have experienced that at least once or twice, maybe more. Entering shell commands, CDO is considering switching servers to Linux. He'll want you to become familiar with using Linux. You'll boot up a test machine and try it out. You'll start by entering basic commands at the bash shell. Yeah, this is something I think it's better to do on your own, I feel like. Yeah. And this one, that's why I said this type of this. I mean, in this specific activity, uh, you can maybe skip it out because you'll be basically entering commands all the time when you start learning a bunch of other stuff. Linux documentation, it is a necessity, helps user perform activities, resolve issue. No official comprehensive source of Linux documentation. The man pages or manual pages, built-in online help, online documentation, Q&A websites, books, other prints, and Stack Overflow, whatever. Or, yeah. Man pages, here we go. Available on Linux systems by default, use the man command to display pages, right? So that's why at first it's kind of like painful to read through the man pages. But again, if you just keep reading in the man pages, what would really help you is basically learn how they write things up, meaning how they explain things, how they, so you kind of get to be in their shoes somehow, those who created the commands or whatever, or the explanation. So let's do man cat. As you can see, it helps you right away that says it concatenates files and print on the standard output. And as I've been saying, output only, its technical term is standard output. And you can basically supply it with an option, which are these, the dash whatever, and the file that you want to basically concatenate and view. Again, there's a lot of them, like E number. As you go further along with these commands, you would really encounter a lot of Linux commands for sure. And sometimes it's frustrating that it doesn't make sense at all what the option name that they're using. For now, it looks easy. We see A as all most of the time, but as you go further along the lines, and it will just be through muscle memory to remember the options as well. But yeah, and again, when you want to search through man pages or manual pages, hit the slash, or and then maybe you're looking for all, and it will highlight everything that has the all description or all subcommand or all option. Okay, syntax description. Yep. Manual pages shows you already. Propose, yes. When I was studying, I don't want to keep. At first, yes, you can just keep referring to the CompTIA study guide ebook, but as you want to really review, like afterwards, when you get the high level overview now, is you want to live in the environment. So keep using these helpful commands, like again, the propose. So like another example, let's say, a propose standard output. Let's see if we can do something like that. Nope, maybe a standard. Yes, you see, concatenate now goes there. And I know this is a bit more advanced, but it's just helpful to learn it now for the propose. So you can basically just maybe use a grep. Piping first. This is basically a pipe. The one, it looks like an L symbol, so that's called a pipe. And maybe put a command called grep, so it's a pattern matching. And what's good with this, it kind of filters your search. So let's say a file, right? Or maybe output. There's still a lot. Or maybe concat. Now it shows you only one. So it's basically trying to filter your search. Yeah, pipe looks like a lowercase L, but not really. It's, yeah, this is without the shift. This is with the shift. I hope I'm not hitting the meeting controls. Yep. Let's say CA. Oh, wrong spelling. Yep. I really like the highlighting part, so you can really see it right away as well. Next, what is? This one is the other way around. Let's say you know the command, but you don't know what it does. So let's say, what's a propose again? So basically what you do is put what is a propose. All right, and then what is cat? So what is kind of helps you with just the one-liner definition. And where does it help? It helps you when you have like, okay, you have cat, you have less, and there's another one, there's more. They all do this standard output. So if you can't really still wrap your head what each one does, maybe just even by definition, you can at least differentiate them. Wow, that was a good definition. Opposite of more. You could have done better than that. Anyway, so info page, help, documentation lives in users shared doc. Let's see if I do have that. Let's see. Yes, so I should have used. Yeah, I couldn't scroll with the CentOS, that's why. Anyways, going back. Online documentation, we mentioned this already, skipping this part. Online documentation for RHEL or Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Interactive help, was mentioned again. Let's just skip this activity. We mentioned this many times already. Accessing help. Analyze log file scripts, etc. Look for specific patterns. And again, while we're on this viewing stuff, which are the common ones that are mostly gonna be maybe talked about. Bigger. So we already have cat. We have more. We have less. We have tail, and we have top. So let's say tail. Wait, because I don't have a lot of lines there. So maybe here. Let's see if I have tail. Let's say tail is my readme. Okay. By default, I believe it shows you the last around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 lines, I think. But you can configure that with the option -n and 5 lines. You get 5 lines. And now you also have the top that does the same thing. By default, it gives you the, oops, maybe I don't have, no, it's head, sorry, head. Head is the opposite of tail. It shows you the first 10, and you can basically put an option with a number. Let's say you want the first 5 lines, right? Now, in the scenario base, what's helpful with this, when do you need to use tail? You need to use tail when, let's say, you're looking for something that's recently been added to a file. Let's say loggings, right? So if you do have um, like user failed in logins, and most of the time, or maybe server errors, most of the time they get filled up in the last part of the whatever file that gets is being updated, right? So that's a good use case for tail. Just seeing the last few lines to check what the problem is. For the head though, one of the good use case is checking for something that has started, and let's say you're basically have a log that checks all the processes that started, and you kind of know that process is one of the first process to really start up. So it will basically be logged in the first few lines, right? So that's a time you would use a head, because you know it started way earlier rather than later. All right. Reflective questions. We can just skip this. And so right now, what we'll do the concept test with the TAs, and after the concept test, we'll basically have a break and try to discuss now all the expectation of the Blackboard and more of like the guides on for the CompTIA Linux Plus exam. So TAs, whenever you're ready, you can basically take it away. And while the TAs are preparing, again, one of the expectation or one of the goals for these 2 courses for the Linux Plus is basically try to go through the materials. I know a bit of as fast as possible, and then try to really review it. I think the TA already started a poll, and basically this is a TA facilitated activity, so I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself and let them take over it.
I mean, since you are the owner of this poll, do you want to explain to everybody what's going on?
Yeah, so I just created this poll. This is a question: which of the following Linux distribution is the no-cost version of Red Hat Enterprise? So you have 4 choices, only one is true. Once all the votes are in, we're going to explain which one is the correct answer and why.
How many minutes do we have for this? Ami?
We have about 2 minutes, so almost done. Let's see. Okay, so the correct answer is choice D, CentOS, and we had 68% of the fellows who actually answered correctly. The other one is Ubuntu, which got 20% of the votes, and then Fedora. But the correct answer is CentOS. And also, we have another test coming up real quick. All right, I just posted the second poll. You guys could get a better view of the question if you wanted to just close the video and just look at it at the Teams tab. You could also do that. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right. So, here. All right, time is almost up. But I think we have 3 more individuals who need to take part. 1 more. Okay. All right, for this one, the right answer was the Linux kernel with the GNU software tools. That's the right answer. It got 74% of the votes. You guys did well. And with that, I think the concept test for this session would be complete.
Okay, thanks, Emin.
No problem.
Now I'd like to deal with some of the muddiest point. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that here. So again, for now, it's totally fine if you guys haven't done the muddiest point because it's your first day with the learning management system Blackboard. But for the next courses, please try to answer the muddiest point before the session so that we can look into it and discuss it as a class. So for David, he said that he doesn't understand why users wouldn't have executable rights for a file created by a user by default. So that part is I tried researching as well. I couldn't really find the answer for why the default is that way. But then again, most of the time, the sysadmin would basically create their new default. So I guess what David was questioning is why out of the box, a user basically creates a file. He doesn't have the executable rights. I know this is a bit ahead as well, but let's see to show an example. And let's see if some of the chat people can. Yeah, one, yes. Basically, security reasons. And then, as you can see here, X would define the executables. It's used for executing scripts. chmod will deal with that later. It's basically changing the permissions for a file text, and these are the permissions. Yep, we'll deal with that later on. And let's see. Yep, and I think most of the guys has not really a lot of problem yet because it's the first time, so totally fine. And then as we get more muddiest point, the lecture would be more driven by what you guys want to learn. Yes, Vincent, correct. The reading before the day begins, prior to each section or lesson, correct. So let's say for tomorrow, let's see the schedule. So now we can start going to the schedule. Let's go to Blackboard. Then to access the schedule, you first go to course information and click that. And then let's put that just desktop. So this will help you what you need to study up. Most of the time, this is the main focus, which is the ebook. So for tomorrow, let's give an example for tomorrow. For tomorrow, you should have at least read lesson 2 so that you can answer the muddiest point for lesson 2 before coming to class. And now we'll start discussing for expectation first on how to use the course schedule. So what happened here is basically we map our CityU schedule in terms of the sequence of the CompTIA ebook study guide. So that we do have a good sequence to follow it. All right. So as you can see, the lesson 3, lesson 4, and now whatever you see in the second column, it's more like required readings or additional resources that you have to read or do. Good to have, but not totally required as of now, because we'll basically give you more time for those. And then a quick thing though, performance-based questions. I have the last year's material, and I do have these types of questions. However, with checking with the newer materials, basically they're the same with the different user interface in CompTIA Store. I don't think they have this performance-based questions already. So the way we're trying to work around with that is towards the other classes, we'll definitely give you a document with an answer key, because you'll definitely encounter performance-based questions. But for now, we just want to make sure that you guys can use this as well to check which CompTIA material or web app that you're accessing is related to lesson 1, because CompTIA themselves or the other vendors doesn't really have this mapping. So we tried our best to map it to make sure it's related to the topic. All right. So again, performance-based questions, you can just leave this for now. You'll have time for those for sure. itpro.tv, that's why I say good to have or good to have watch it now, but also will give you more time later on. The reason for that is it basically has a lot of uh, it basically has a lot of content to cover, even for some of the topics. So you guys might get really tired if you want to do this right now, but feel free to do so if you need to. Um, for the first day, which is now, you guys done SIA. For those, please do that. Muddiest point before the class. Concept test is during the class, which we've done. It's also our way to check the attendance. If you didn't put in your answers, we will ask you why and check if you were really there. It's another way that we can control it. Discussion board. This was painful before. We remove it, but we added it again. But this time around, it's modified because before it was really like a regular class discussion board where people have to respond. In this case around, we want you guys to summarize a chosen video, a CompTIA study guide video, because for me, I really want to emphasize you guys writing, and the more you write about a certain topic in your own words, the more you can retain it. So that's the purpose for that. For the virtual lab as well, we'll be using the CertMaster labs or practice labs to basically choose one of the labs and again explain thoroughly, document as properly as possible. And for me, I'll basically check both of these the same way. When I read it, I should understand what you're saying, because if not, it defeats the purpose. And then this is just an exception for the first one because the first lesson doesn't have a practice lab. So you can just substitute a study guide video to your own environment. The knowledge check it also comes from CompTIA's ebook material, and we grab a lot of the activity sections. So it's still related to the CompTIA material. For the team project, I don't want to bombard with you guys for today, but starting tomorrow, we'll form your teams and you'll basically work in teams during afternoon. So just trying to do for tomorrow. Let's repeat, and I'll go to Blackboard afterwards. Lesson 2, and these are the related CertMaster practice exam. Again, this is not really required. This is just to show you it's related to this one. Why? Because this also takes a lot of time. It might take you 30 minutes for one to really finish one, and another 30 minutes for the other one. Okay? Use this as your guide. Everything on the third column is the one that you need to submit. So again, muddiest point before the class, concept test during the class, discussion board, summarize these videos from your student guide, virtual lab. Now you do have practice lab to choose from. Document as properly as possible, knowledge check. All right. Now, what's different with the only thing that would be different is when you come to every Friday. Don't mind the numbers for now. Every Friday, every second week Friday, as I mentioned, second week Friday, you'd have to do presentation. And that's why it goes to here, the last Friday. And sorry I keep saying before, but another thing before we, yes, totally understand. So if you don't have a Blackboard access yet, it's fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and release this as well soon as I finalize. This one is to give you a bigger picture for the 3 courses that would be dedicated for you guys to really focus on CompTIA. So this is the CS 120, which I covered already, so we'll skip ahead. So for the CS 223, we'll just be continuing on. So the format is still the same until we hit lesson 15. So hopefully in about 4 weeks, we're done with lesson 15. And now once we enter the networking class, which is the third class, you'll see 2 modules that are still CompTIA related because it does touch upon the networking topic, which is lesson 10. But afterwards, that one, when you go to module 3 towards module 10, what happens now here is a lot of review. So my goal is here to really point out your knowledge gap and use that as a way to reinforce your knowledge. So for example, for discussion board for the third course, you'll now have the performance-based questions. Yes, you would do have answer keys, but you have to summarize it. And now with the virtual lab, we don't want you guys to do virtual lab. Let's just go ahead with itpro.tv and summarize what you've learned. Because again, in my experience using these materials, the itpro.tv is really good and in-depth. It really covers a lot of your knowledge gap when you're now trying to review. And then for now, it's very important to get a general overview. So for the first two classes, again, second column, required reading, the rest is optional. Third column are required submission. And so for the pacing, if you guys can keep finishing, let's say, far ahead with the discussion board, virtual lab, knowledge check, you're more than welcome to. Because the faster you finish the minimum requirements for these courses, I guess the more time you would have, to do your own self-reviews. Because again, we as in CityU, we do have minimum requirements for you guys to submit, because we can't just go through this program without entering anything in our learning management system. It would act as like you guys did not really do anything in the course. And then again, because these courses are counts as credits to a degree in CityU as well. So please do that. So minimum requirements. And then once we move over to the programming classes, that's the time we will get more serious about these assignments. Now going back to the Blackboard, are the required reading mapped to what pages need us to read? It's mapped on the lessons. Yes. So the Blackboard should now have a similar structure. Sorry, going back again. So do always check out announcement. Course content, you guys have to, course information, you guys have to meet a minimum requirement of 73.5% over 100%. And it looks very high, but I tell you, with the AAP cohort, as long as you submit everything, you almost likely get a very, very high grade. But if you tend to fall off submitting one, or several of them, that would really pull your grade down. So for us, as long as you submit everything is clear, you'll just get a high grade, because we do know we don't really want to heavily put heavy criticisms on your grades. Now, discussion board, most of you had access already, and this is where you submit your discussion board summaries. Feel free to go over them. And then I'll be the one responding. I don't know if the TAs have access to this already, so it might be most of the time me. Hence, that's why if you have questions or anything, always use the chat in Microsoft Teams so the TAs could readily help you out. As far as the course, these simulate the course schedule. If I open, it's the same structure: required reading, the lecture slide we use. So you would see the submissions for that day. This one you don't have to do because the TAs check that one. This one, it's just a link to that discussion board, so you're fine. Virtual lab submission, it does give you like a very simple template. So just have the download, put stuff here, and then we let you guys to be very creative. And again, important part for me is the summary. Last cohort, what we did is really put a lot of InfoSec bash scripts, which really helped them a lot with bash scripting. But because we later learned that it's not really a big portion. So that's why we're now reducing, or almost, we don't have those our own bash script practices, because again, CompTIA material should be sufficient. Team project, you can, again, even though it looks like a deadline, let's do this tomorrow, that's fine. Even this one, I'll tell more about that tomorrow. Knowledge check, you just click it. It's basically a multiple choice question related to the CompTIA study guide. And then in the event that you want to go to the next module, click next module. And if you do want a list of every submission as well, another way you can go to is click assignment, and you can see all the muddiest points here and all the concepts tests here. Oh no, should not be here. So because it's TA facilitated. Virtual lab submission links here. Knowledge check submissions tests here, and team project. Okay, so all of these submissions were created here and was just linked to the course content. And if you want to keep track of what you have submitted or not yet, just click My Grades, and you can see submitted or what's graded, upcoming, and all. Have access to faculty information. So if you personally want to contact the TA Center, or to be specific, the AAP TA Center, here's the email, general email for everyone. One of them would respond to you. You have Smita, Ron, MN, Spencer, Kim, and Ruth. And you would see instructor info if you want to contact me for any concerns. Yeah, also program director Morgan and Sam, and the librarian as well if you have problems with the ebooks later on, because now it's CompTIA materials, but later on we'll be using library provided ebooks. You're able to also contact course members, I think, for some of you to check their email, but I think in Microsoft's team that allows you to do that already. What else? So for the exam, let's see, exam objectives. So this is the official Linux Plus certification exam objectives. I can send this, but you can just easily Google that as well. And the important part is this one is basically, let's zoom in, maximum of 90. I think it was 65 questions for me, so maybe this is a typo. So yeah, it's just saying maximum. So yeah, multiple choice and performance based, 90 minutes length of test. Recommended experience, it's fine, because I did it without any experience with Linux operating system, so you guys should be fine. Passing score is 720. Exam objectives, as you can see the breakdown, they're kind of equally weighted, with a bit more focus on these two. Yep. Let's see what else. And this is also a good way to have a checklist on your own, because I recently just found this after the exam, because this one is great that it can list a bunch of theories, concept, commands, and those kind of stuff. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask it, yeah, or in chat, whatever. If you guys have any problems with Blackboard, CompTIA exam, we'll definitely give you guys the voucher maybe 2-3 weeks from now, so that you can schedule it. And we'll be using, basically we'll be using the Python class period, because at least you guys should have more bandwidth to take a test for 90 minutes and then continue on with the day. So that would be on the 4th course. Okay. What else? Let's see again. Well, because we still have a lot of time, so we'll just take a break at 3, so we can 3 to 3:15. So one of the, I'll just quickly talk about the team project. So team project is all about your creativity, and definitely using Kanban, which is using Trello, Agile, iterative approach using Daily Scrum. I'll show you where to check that, and that's for tomorrow. Yes. So basically, what we want you guys to do is create slides, and basically each member has their own demo and analysis of what they've learned, and a collective of them, as you can see here. You can make it as fun as possible, but make sure it's also very informative. I can show you, let's say, an example of this one, of the previous cohort. It shows their faces, names, and about fun. And what's great with this, every time they do this, a lot of students do learn about what they currently have done. Like, what are the ways that they have done it. So again, it's not only learning from the instructor and the TAs, but it's also mostly learning from the other team. And because we want to emphasize collaboration, so even though, let's say, these 3 are the 3 in one team, you can definitely ask for help in other teams or talk to other person. Totally okay, because we had a lot of team project presentation that they would always credit that, oh, this person helped our team. Oh, this person helped our team. And that's really good, because again, we'll try to move as one, and let's move together. And aside from that, this gives you a platform to practice communicating, because again, even the brightest developer, if you can't communicate a simple idea, that's not going to be a good mix for collaboration. Yeah, so definitely you'll meet every day afternoons starting tomorrow. So starting tomorrow will be lecture in the morning. Afternoon would be kind of like study hall, and then do part of your time to do team projects as well. And for that location, when we get your team members, we'll basically give you guys access to a folder called Student Access, and we'll also build this student FAQs so that we have a knowledge base for you guys. So for this class, let's say this one, and you'll be provided a OneNote with the daily Scrum, which you would can fill up anytime, but you'd want to talk about it with a TA or instructor to check up on you. So member 1, member 2, member 3. And in daily Scrum, you basically just ask, what have you done? And what will you do? And are you roadblock? As simple as that. And you would also have access to a Trello board, a very simple one like this. You can really play around with it, get some inspiration out there. And for us, we can use labels, and just to give you an example, Trello board, like this was how we build our tasks with a lot of labels. Some of the older previous cohort, let's see if there's anything good. Oh, this one is I just created this one, so no. Like this one is another. This one is not really. It's more like a flashcard that I created. I can share this as well. It might help you guys, but I usually use it like later on. Yeah, so the basics of Kanban is, let's see, let's go back to a team, this one. You have a to-do, doing, and done. You basically have cards here, and if you're currently doing it, you just drag and drop, put it in doing. It's a test, you can just change it later, and I move it here. And you can even have additional column, let's say review. You can put it to done. And then that helps everyone visualize. And then Kanban is really at the very basic level, just sticky notes. And what it really helps in the workplace is you enter your office during the day, and you currently see what is the current uh, the work in progress, or the bandwidth of a developer, or you can readily see if a developer is blocked and needs help. So this is a good way to do that, and it's real world. And then going back, this is the same template slides that you guys can use. And I remember I'll check as well if we need a Word doc for that. Okay, so this is the team project, and for the team project goal is, and this time around, because in my Linux Plus exam experience, they really asked some of the Linux commands, a combination of them. So for the CS120, you have to basically present a combination of at least two Linux command and used in a real use case scenario, and basically document it properly. Because the more we try to simulate these real use case scenario, the better you'll perform at the exam. And then so if you have some problems with your CompTIA materials, try to um, email me. And a while ago, I also sent you guys the additional itpro.tv access code. So you guys should have all the materials except for the exam vouchers right now. And it's 3 p.m. So let's take another quick 15-minute break. We'll get back, more discussions, and then TA would summarize the session, and we'll end at 4 p.m. PST, and then we'll see you tomorrow. So 15-minute break for now. So, okay, I'm back. So there are some questions in the chat, and let's just clarify them. Because I didn't think I didn't clarify enough. So just be aware that some of the modules, let's say module 2 and module 3, both falls on the same day, and that is correct. So the reason for this is we have a limited amount of time to hit the lessons. So even for this one, module 6 and 7 are for one day. Module, yes. So those two modules, 2 and 3, falls on one day, and then the 6 and 7 falls on one day. And that's why, again, even though there's a lot, we don't really ask you to submit everything. We just ask you to submit one of them, so you can first hit our minimum requirements and you can move on with your self-study. And aside from that, the most important part is at least read the section so that you can follow along with the lecture at the minimum. Let's say you're falling behind, totally fine. But it's very important to at least read the lesson for that day, which is these, lesson 2, and it spills over to a bit of lesson 3, right? And it might be even touching these if the time permits. So yes, it's kind of like try to read ahead so that come the weekend, you can definitely maybe go further ahead with the submissions or catch up on the submissions. Because in regular classes, we do have deadlines for these submissions, but in these program, in the AAP program, what I'd like to happen is as long as you finish all the minimum requirement, at least at the weekend of the second week, so that we don't have any issues in terms of like grading and submission, and you guys can just move along and just go back to those some of the topics. Because again, in my experience as well, the Linux Plus exam has a broad topic, so you really need to get the general overview first, and then try to target topics that is still muddy to you. Again, reminder, for tomorrow, we do have lesson 2 and lesson 3. And again, because we still have the lecture, so if you really didn't have time, because I know you guys have a lot of things to like do as well with the other stakeholders. So if you do miss out not reading, it's totally fine for now. I do understand. We still have the lecture, so I'm still there to get the information out. But again, that's why I still want you guys to somehow read it so that you can submit the muddiest point, and it helps me focus on what topics and maybe prepare more, right? And then another thing that I forgot, and has anyone has any problem with their Linux environment? If yes, can you just go ahead and put in the chat, yes, I haven't configured my Linux environment. So maybe after the class, the TAs can help you guys out. But if not, you can also email after the class to ask some help for the Linux environment. I think for some, I do remember for the last cohort, for some students, what they did was they used some of the practice labs and open it up and basically try to practice even different types of commands in that limited virtual environment. So that could work as well. But again, in my experience, I did finish up all the materials for this, and it did not really help me with the practice labs when I tried to quickly go over all of them. So having your own environment still helps a lot, especially when you're trying to do the student guide activity section, especially for reviewing. And the labs are, So I did send that link. That link basically points to a OneNote because we're building an FAQ page as we go. And here's basically the list of CompTIA materials. I can easily paste that here as well. So it's not really hard for everyone. And I know it goes crazy with all these different logins because they have different tie-up with different vendors as well. So that's really more of like a no choice. And the way I try to handle it is basically creating a folder bookmark, and I can quickly access them anytime. So okay, let's see what else. So again, another thing that I'd like to point out, if we're kind of running out of like time to cover the modules, we'll basically spill over to the afternoon to tackle the lecture. But again, I did check most of the slides already for the CompTIA. They're pretty more like introductory, and it's not really super deep in terms of the slides. So it's really great as an overview, and it really helps with doing the self-learning afterwards. Okay. What else did we have to talk about? SIA. Don't forget. Again, I strongly emphasize this. Hang around in teams. Talk anything under the sun here. So it means that if you have questions here, it might not be answered. So kindly put questions here so that TA could just check this channel and see whatever is happening. For today's session, it's recorded, so feel free to come back and skim through it. And then let's have, if the TAs are ready as well, one of the things as part of their task is they basically need to summarize the day of what we tackled in class, or maybe additional inputs from the TAs as well. Yes.
Sure,
Alex,
Clark.
ordered. Okay.
Yeah. I'll share my screen.
Go ahead.
Are you guys able to see it?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you had a great learning today. So let's do a quick summary of what we have learned today. So before we start with Linux, let's see a quick definition of what an OS is. So basically, it's a software program that enables the hardware component to communicate with the software. And now what is about Linux? So Linux is OS which was developed based on the Unix designs, and the extra or the additional thing that it has is the graphical user interface. Again, Linux is an open source operating system, which means you can modify, you can share, you can distribute, you can see the code and do whatever you want to make it operable for you. Like you make it as if it's your own, it's your personal. Next is Linux is a multi-user platform. That means more than one user can have an access in a Linux platform. For example, a super user, which we call to be a root user, or also we can have our personal accounts. Linux also enables multiprocessor, which means It can have more than one core, and also it supports multitasking, which is as simple as have operating more than one task at the same time. After that, we know that kernel is the main module of the Linux operating system. It's like the heart of the system. Well, kernel is the first thing which gets booted in, loaded into the memory when the system boots up, and after that it takes over everything like um, memory management or the process management. And the most important is the kernel helps the hardware systems, or it also takes care of the hardware systems which are connected to the system. Going forward, what are the advantages of Linux? Like, why do we need to use Linux over other operating systems? The most important one is it's free. It's the source code which is available for everyone, and you can contribute to the code, modify it, enhance it, and make it your own. And most importantly, it is free of cost. And now, what are the uses of Linux? Like, where and all we can use a Linux system? A Linux system can work as a servers. There can be many Linux operating systems, and we can communicate with them over the network. Even the workstations, like a PC, also has a Linux operating system. The mobile devices, for example, Android, uses an Linux operating system. And most important is the mainframe or the supercomputers, which for 97% of it uses a Linux OS. Now, the most important is the Linux file system basics, how the Linux entire file system is being divided. The most important or the base of it is the root. From the root is where it starts, and from there are division of directories and files, and then it goes on. So root is like the like an admin which is sitting at the base, and from there you have your home directories where you can have your users. After that is the CLI. It is an interface between the user and the OS which accepts the input from you. For example, we have learned various commands today, out of which the most important one which I thought today was ls. So ls is a command which lists down all the files and the directories available. And when you write a command in your command prompt or the CLI, it is divided into three parts: the command itself, and it can have various options. For example, -l to have a long, and also LA, for example, and also it can have arguments. For example, ls -l /user means it will list down all the files and the directories available in the user folder. Again, if you give only ls -l, it means it will list down every files and directory available in the folder where you are currently present. Now let's look at the commands, some useful commands which we have talked about today. An echo, which helps repeating the input back to the user. Like, you write something with an echo in front of it, it repeats the same thing, and it flashes it. PW command, it displays the current working directory, like where you are. There's a command called touch, which helps you create a file. And if the file is already present, it will help you update the timestamp. There is make directory, which clearly indicates that you can create or make a new directory in any folder. There's a command called cp, which helps you copy. And there is a su command, which is a super user command. Su command helps you to substitute the credentials. Most of the time, we don't log in into a system being the super user. So and anytime we can substitute our own user as a super user and continue with the commands, because most of the times we don't get access to do certain operations when we are in our own user mode. So that's when you use your su command. Last but not the least, let's see some helpful sources from where we can learn the commands. The most important is the man command. It shows the information about all the commands, and the syntax is man and the command. For any information that you want to know about a command, you just type man and the command, and it will give you a list of how useful that command can be. Apros, This is the command when you know what to do, but you exactly don't know what command you want to use it. That's why you use an approps command. Yeah, you just have to write the task. For example, you want to compress a file, but you don't know what command to use, right? So you can just write approps and compress. It will give you a list of all the commands using which you can compress the file. And there are other commands like what is. When you write a what is command, it will figure out what this command actually does. For example, what is approps? It will tell you what approps does. There are also commands called info, which will give you the information, and help command gives you the usage or the arguments that you can use along with the command. For example, ls will have l when you write ls help. And then we have a doc folder, which is a directory. It has all the information about the authors, licensing, etc., about a software which is available in the system. So that's it from my side. If you guys have any questions for us.
Thank you, Smita. It's good summary. I just like to just have just a few small corrections though. One is SU is yes, it allows you to be to do super user temporarily, but it stands for a substitute user. Where was that? SU. Nope, it's up there. Yeah, switch or substitute, and yes, allows you to get super user privilege. And another just quick correction is Linux kernel and the GNU software makes up the Linux operating system. But the rest, all good.
Thank you.
That's good. And then let's see. I think I see some. My chat was hidden. Let me see. Yeah, so Juan, that's a great way to add as well. Sudo is super user do, as in do X as super user. So yes, so even sudo, you can practice it in your daily conversation instead of saying, "Please, I want something." Try say sudo, I want something. So that really helps you be more immersed. So with sudo, you'll eventually get anything you want and break things. Sudo make me a sandwich meme. Cool. Yeah, like let's see a sudo meme quickly. Yep. So another fun way for me to learn, and I hope you guys, if let's say you're getting very stressed out in all of those, a lot of things that you're trying to learn. For me, a great way to relax myself is I basically check up a tech meme. If I don't understand it, it means I have some knowledge gap. If I do laugh about it, it means I do understand the concept. So that's another way to keep yourself sane. And right now, if you guys have more questions, let me know now, but we'll hang around still because we're going to use the rest of the session now. We'll try to make it end a little bit early so that the TAs could help around the other students, because that's what we usually do during the afternoon session to help them around. You guys, again, you still guys need to hang around until 4, I think. I'll still hang around here to check about on things. And any questions that you have, please direct them first to the TAs. I know I've been emailing and conversing with you guys, but for moving forward, please tap into the TAs first, and that just gives me just extra bandwidth to prepare for stuff and manage all the other things. But definitely, if it's an important concern, I'm free to reach out anytime, and I'll definitely look at the message to see if everything is going okay with any interactions. What else? So, I guess let's just do this. So those who have asked for help, you can now go with your respective TAs that you asked for help, and maybe go on a different video chat. I'll hang around here until 4 p.m. Yeah. Let's see. And what do I want to show? And again, we the other students, we still can have discussions, and don't worry, we'll keep the other students informed if there's a very important discussion we had, like a question. So don't you worry about that. So I guess for the TAs or students who would like to interact with one another, just go on a private chat with them, and then just click join video. I believe so. And now, feel free to just open up your mic if you just want to talk. Totally fine.
So Clark, you're saying
Yep.
You're saying read modules 2 and 3, or I'm sorry, do the muddiest
Yep.
for modules 2 and 3 tonight.
Yep. Yeah. If it's not, yeah, it's tonight. Because tomorrow morning we do have a session. Yes. So if it's you have a different time zone, maybe try to get some rest. And then again, I'll be really lenient if, let's say, you guys are still trying to catch up on some rest because you guys have been doing a lot of this, a lot of like submissions for other stakeholders, right? So if you're super tired, it's fine. But try to at least have like 15, 30 minutes and just skim through it very fast, something like that. So just still be in page. Yeah. So one of the lighter topics here, Vim is better, said Chan, but I said Emacs is better. I really hated that when I was just starting out, and whenever my commit message in Git opens up in Emacs, and I really don't know how to, I don't know how to save or exit. And it's super annoying. Oh, great one. And then I really appreciate the students who are really helping out, making the class chat discussion. Like it really adds a lot of value. Thank you a lot. I see Juan all the time, and Vincent, Kendall. I think almost everyone. So this is really great because the more guys have discussion, again, one of it is you guys have better chemistry, and you guys can learn more easily as well.
Also, Clark, I just graduated my a lot of my military training in January, and we were pretty Linux heavy, and we distributed a lot of cheat sheets, so to speak, like a sheet of commands to always kind of have in your toolbox. Can we like distribute those to each other in the class?
Yeah.
Okay.
So any additional resources is totally fine, with just the disclaimer that always remind your peers that yes, it helps real world, but let's also try to stick with the materials, because they might end up focusing on a certain command that doesn't exist on the exam. So it's like just a disclaimer. It's good to have, but focus on the materials first. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kendall.
Yeah, I have some questions.
And in terms of, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Hi. So I'm very new to the Linux, or I don't have any experience of like programming, anything like that. So today was very interesting, but at the same time, I was a bit confused. A lot of commands and all that. So is there any other like resource so I can study of it to understand better with the Linux, other than CompTIA's resource?
Oh, okay. We definitely have our previous YouTube curated links, so I can send that over. Maybe that would give a different way to explain things, not just purely technical right away. So I'll find that and share that to the class. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Thanks,
that'd be
Ian.
great. Thank you.
So I'm gonna go ahead and copy paste. So because I believe most of you have access to these student FAQs. So I'll create a page, supplementary videos, and just paste it here. Some of them might not have titles, and just don't care about the modules. Let me just remove that. Might just confuse everyone. And we'll put up titles with that as well. Just let me know, especially because I think he and Alex, I think, asked, yeah, Alexander, yeah. Do check if you do have access, and I'll quickly, and just don't forget to bookmark it right away, because things get pretty complicated with where things are. And just rename it as, for me, I especially rename my stuff. Let's say, even this just a weird URL link, I would put the name to easily remember it. And let's see. And let me put the supplementary videos in Linux just to make it more aligned with the category. And again, for those who are new, feel free to always chat, reach out. We'll definitely support you more, because again, we really want to focus on, especially those who are not coming from those coming without a background. For those with a background, I truly appreciate all the help that you have shown and put up with the chat, and that really reflects a lot when we meet up with the managers. And just to add, once we're nearing scheduling and you guys taking the exam, I'll definitely give a lot of tips on how to tackle the exam. Well, this is over the wire. Oh, capture the flag. Cool. Yes, Rob. Concept test. Basically, you submit your answers in the poll. It's another way of checking attendance, and that's it. You get full credit. Yep.
There was a question about
Yes.
virtual lab from Vincent. He said if today's virtual lab is being supplemented, what would be the submission in Blackboard for it?
So again, to come back to the course content, let's say you go course content, and first you wanna click this one to get the access to the template. And this is basically a free-for-all, communicate properly, document properly for your own good as well. And it's just a 100-word summary. And then what you do is basically you open up a lab. Is this the lab? No. Again, you guys might have a different login just because I have the older interface. It might be the older interface. It might be the same. But I can basically just hit this up, and domain is comp-p01. And based from the schedule, for the module 1, again, this is just a substitute just because it doesn't really have a lesson 1 practice lab. So you need to choose the other CompTIA study guide video. But for module through 2 and 3, basically just choose one. Choose one of these and capture a screenshot that it's most relevant to you, and try to explain the steps and make sure when I read it, I can understand it easily. Do that answer your question? What about due date? Yes, as I mentioned before, I really hated the due dates last time. So I said, let's not implement that and let's just have hard deadlines. So all of these, let's say for CS 120 again, as long as you complete them by, so you still have the weekend here. So May 17th on everything, you're good to go. We'll check up your progress on the weekend though, the first weekend if you're really falling behind or requires additional help. But with all of these, again, we really reduced the requirement from us, so you should be able to finish these, with the exception of, wait, someone is okay, muted. So with the exception of, I know it will be kind of hard for the first week only, just because we have an awkward schedule, but you definitely be able to catch up, because as you can see, that's 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 59 seconds. In these practice labs, I think if I remember correctly, most of them are pretty short and straightforward. So you'll be able to knock out all of the minimum requirements for CDU. Hope that answers the question. Because in the last cohort, what we have done, which was very stressful, was for every submission, it's due on the next 2 days. So it's like every day you have a due date and you haven't even finished your other previous assignment. So it's, for me, I believe it was pretty stressful. I know it kind of drives the students to submit it fast, but I hope this works, that you guys can manage your own time and just have a hard deadline and not super pressure anyone with the fast pace of the program already. Yes. Yeah, correct. Yep, totally agree. Then again, that's why supplements is like making you just be exposed to them and move on. So that again, because the part of the review process is after you got through most of them, you now try to review deeper, right? For now, it's always gonna be like second week of the course, second weekend of the course, and we'll still be flexible if, let's say, there's a situation or something like that. And where is that course schedule, Doc, at? It's located at the sorry, Blackboard CS120, and then in the course information and schedule. And also in the FAQ, I placed an overall schedule, I believe, with this one. It should be the same. It does just haven't has the dates. That's fine, but at least this gives you the overall glimpse of the mapping of CompTIA materials to our CDU courses. Okay. Thank you, everyone. It has been a smooth first day for us, I believe. Thank you, everyone, for making this. I mean, as smooth as possible. I keep saying smooth. Yeah. So thank you, TAs. Thank you, students. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. PST. We'll still hang around in the chat. So video off, chat is still on. So thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.